You were never meant to know this. In the archives of the Wisconsin Diocese, buried behind sealed walls and coded ledgers, lies a story so vile it could collapse faith itself. 23 nuns. Gone. Erased between 1854 and 1862 from St. Mary's Convent, their names whispered only in prayers no one dares to speak aloud. Picture this: a cold winter night, wind howling off Lake Michigan, snow clinging to the Gothic arches of the convent's stone walls. The bell tolls 3 a.m. Matins. 20 sisters should rise for prayer. Only 19 do. In the silence of the chapel, one space stands empty. No farewell. No explanation. The Mother Superior's pale eyes scan the room, and with a voice that could cut glass, she whispers, "God calls some sooner than others." Locals thought St. Mary's was holy ground, a place for orphans, widows, and the dying poor. But behind those walls, devotion twisted into something darker. Punishments for small sins, kneeling on pews until knees bled, fasting for days, silence so absolute even coughing was penance. Outsiders saw charity, insiders felt control. The church called disappearances transfers. Records claimed the sisters went to missions in Minnesota, Chicago, even Rome, but no letters ever came back. The families wrote, they begged, they prayed. All they got were forged replies, neat handwriting that investigators later proved came from one hand. This isn't just a ghost story. It's a wound in American religious history that the church buried under a century of denial. And tonight, we're going inside those walls. Inside the chapel where candles burned for missing souls. Inside the dormitory where whispers turned to screams. And once you know, you'll never pray the same way again. The land itself warned them. Locals whispered the forest around the convent was cursed long before the church arrived. Old native legends spoke of the Hollow Woman, a spirit that lured the devout into the woods never to return. Protestant settlers added their own fears, calling it papist ground, a place where foreign rituals would open doors better left closed. But in 1854, Bishop William Quarter ignored the omens. He purchased the abandoned lumber baron's mansion on 30 acres of pine, its limestone walls looming like a fortress. For the church, this was conquest, the first major Catholic outpost in hostile Protestant territory. On the day of consecration, locals gathered outside the gates, watching black-robed women file silently into the chapel. "Papists!" one man spat. "They'll corrupt our children." He was half right. The corruption would come, but not the way anyone expected. Mother Catherine Murphy led the order, tall, gaunt, eyes so pale they seemed almost silver. Witnesses swore she could silence a room with a single glance. At her side, Sister Elizabeth, soft-spoken and motherly. Sister Margaret, sharp and clinical with her herbs and tinctures. Behind them, 20 young Irish nuns, girls barely past 20, fleeing famine and poverty, seeking salvation in America's wild frontier. That night, the bells tolled for the first time. Matins at 3, lauds at dawn, 7 prayers a day, 7 chances to kneel on cold stone and prove devotion through suffering. The locals thought it strange, the harsh silence, the fasting, the punishments. But they didn't know the rules inside those walls. Rules that would tighten, day by day, until obedience became worship, and worship became fear. Life inside St. Mary's followed a rhythm: prayer, labor, silence. From the outside, it seemed holy. Inside, it was absolute control. Silence was law. Breaking it meant penance, kneeling on gravel, fasting 48 hours, flagellation with knotted cords. The orphanage brimmed with children abandoned by railroad workers and lumbermen. The infirmary healed the sick when no doctor would ride through the snow. To the world, St. Mary's was charity incarnate. But every good deed hid a shadow. Obedience demanded, individuality crushed, devotion measured in suffering. Mother Catherine's eyes missed nothing. She glided silently through the halls, appearing where no one expected her. She called it vigilance. The younger nuns called it haunting. Her voice was soft, but it carried like a blade. "God is watching," she'd whisper, "and so am I." By winter, whispers spread of strange punishments. A nun forced to hold burning candles during prayer for dozing off. Another locked in the cellar for 3 nights with only bread and water. These were not official penances. They were Mother's will. At first, families received letters, shaky handwriting, updates on work and health. But slowly, letters stopped. Questions were deflected. Transfers announced suddenly, always to distant missions. No goodbyes, no details, only absence. Sister Agnes was first, young, bright, full of laughter, gone overnight. God called her elsewhere, Mother Catherine explained. Weeks later, Sister Bernardet vanished. Same story. Then Sister Teresa. Each disappearance colder, more routine. By the 3rd missing nun, whispers of escape spread through the dormitory. But the gates were locked at night, the woods thick and endless, and those who dared speak of leaving never spoke twice. The disappearances might have stayed rumors, if not for what the workers found. Spring thaw, 1856. A group of laborers repairing the convent's western wall unearthed something buried shallow beneath the snowmelt. Cloth. Black cloth. A torn habit sleeve, stiff with dried blood. The workers froze. This wasn't farmland. It wasn't a graveyard. It was consecrated ground. They took it to Father O'Malley, the parish priest overseeing St. Mary's. He burned it in the rectory fireplace, telling them to speak of it to no one. "Satan sows lies to divide the faithful," he said. But the men whispered anyway, and the story spread. Inside the convent, the nuns knew more than they admitted. Whispers carried through the dormitory, scratching in the walls at night, muffled cries from the cellar, the smell of iron after certain prayers. Some claimed to see shadows where no candles burned. Others swore the chapel's stained glass eyes followed them during Mass. One orphan, 7-year-old Clara, told Sister Mary she saw angels in the forest at night, women in black, faces pale as snow, standing among the pines, motionless. By morning, they were gone. Clara stopped speaking after that. Investigators came. Diocesan inspectors sent from Milwaukee. They examined the books, the grounds, the records. Everything appeared immaculate. Transfers noted. Letters logged. No crime. No scandal. No sin. The inspectors left. But 2 months later, one returned. Quietly. Alone. He demanded access to the cellar. Mother Catherine refused. The next morning, his horse was found riderless on the lakeshore. The inspector was never seen again. From that moment, no one questioned St. Mary's again. By 1857, fear had settled over St. Mary's like winter frost. The nuns spoke less, prayed harder, and avoided the gaze of Mother Catherine. Even laughter from the orphans, once bright, dulled to whispers. Something unseen stalked the halls. Sister Mary Collins began keeping a hidden journal, scrawled between the margins of hymnals. In it, she documented punishments too cruel for God. Novices locked overnight in the crypt, forced fasts lasting days, confessions extracted under candlelight until lips bled from kissing the stone floor. She wrote of Sister Margaret's herbs, strange powders slipped into wine during communion, bitter teas that left women pliable, forgetful. She wrote of tunnels beneath the convent, remnants of the lumber baron's cellars, sealed off but always echoing with distant weeping. Most chilling were the disappearances. Always young, always obedient. Agnes, Bernardet, Teresa. Each reassignment announced without proof. Each farewell denied. Then came Sister Helena, strong-willed, suspicious. She confronted Mother Catherine after Vespers. "Where do they go?" The next morning, Helena's bed was empty. Her rosary hung neatly on the bedpost. Bead snapped, crucifix missing. When Sister Mary showed the journal to Sister Elizabeth, hoping for an ally, Elizabeth smiled softly, then burned the pages in the kitchen hearth. That night, Mary heard footsteps outside her cell. Slow, deliberate, a whisper through the keyhole. "Confess." The townsfolk noticed changes too. St. Mary's bells rang at strange hours, echoing across the frozen lake. Lanterns glowed in upper windows past midnight. The orphans rarely ventured outside anymore, their pale faces pressed against the glass during Mass. Rumors spread of screams carried on the wind. High, sharp, cut short. Farmers crossing the woods swore they saw black figures kneeling in circles, faces tilted skyward, mouths open in silent prayer. Yet no one confronted the convent directly. The Catholic Church wielded power, and fear of divine reprisal kept tongues still. For Protestants, it was easier to mutter papist evil and keep their distance. For Catholics, questioning meant heresy, and heresy meant hell. In May of 1857, a local boy vanished. His parents searched the woods, scoured the lakeshore, begged for help at St. Mary's. Mother Catherine promised prayers. That night, villagers swore they heard chanting. Not Latin, but something older, more guttural, drifting across the water. The boy's body was never found. A month later, a traveling priest arrived, claiming to investigate. His name was Father Kearney. Young, idealistic, suspicious of the convent's growing isolation. He spent 3 days within its walls. On the 4th morning, the gates opened and he rode away. He left no report. He never spoke of St. Mary's again. Locals began calling the convent the Hollow House. Some crossed themselves when passing. Others walked miles out of their way to avoid its gates. By winter, even the orphans' laughter had vanished. Only the bells remained. Then came the diary. In 1860, during renovations to the orphanage wing, workers found a small wooden box sealed inside a wall. Inside, a diary, bound in cracked leather, pages water-stained and frantic. It belonged to Sister Teresa Donovan, one of the missing. Her words were confession and curse. "The mother tells us suffering cleanses the soul, but I do not feel cleansed. I feel hollow." Agnes went first. She cried in the night. Margaret gave her a draught to quiet her. She never woke. They said God called her away, but I saw the hole in the earth. Elizabeth watches the children closely, too closely. Their prayers are whispered, but I hear crying after Compline. I do not think it is for God. Tonight they came for Bernardet. She begged to stay. Mother held her hand as Margaret mixed the herbs. I closed my eyes, but the sound stays with me. The final entry chilled investigators. I am next. The cellar door is open. I can hear them chanting below. If this is God's work, why does it smell of blood? The diary was confiscated by diocesan authorities. It was never seen again. But rumors of its contents spread, fueling whispers that the missing nuns never left St. Mary's at all. As the Civil War raged in the East, St. Mary's grew quieter. Fewer orphans arrived. Donations dwindled. The convent, once hailed as holy, became a silent fortress. Yet the disappearances continued. Records list 5 more transfers between 1861 and 1862. All young, all untraceable. Families wrote desperate letters. The replies came back brief, formal, identical. Years later, handwriting experts confirmed what the families suspected. Every letter had been penned by the same hand. Inside, paranoia spread. Nuns slept with rosaries clutched tight, whispering prayers to saints long forgotten. Some carved crosses into their bed frames, as if wood could stop whatever stalked the halls. Mother Catherine grew thinner, her pale eyes almost luminous in candlelight. She spoke often of purification, of removing weakness to build a perfect order. Her sermons no longer mentioned Christ's love, only obedience, sacrifice, silence. Sister Margaret's herbs became more potent. New tinctures appeared, thick, black, bitter, administered before confession, before penance, before whatever came next. And then, silence. After 1862, no new records, no more letters. St. Mary's simply vanishes from history. By 1870, the convent is abandoned, windows shattered, chapel gutted by fire. The woods reclaim the walls. But some say the bells still toll on winter nights. Decades later, in 1911, construction crews clearing the land for a new seminary made a discovery. Beneath the old chapel, sealed behind brick, they found a tunnel. Inside, 23 rosaries, 23 habits, 23 shallow graves. The church intervened immediately. The site was declared holy ground. The bones were reburied quietly. No press, no investigation. Only whispers among workers. Whispers of broken skulls, bound wrists, and shallow scratches in stone, as if the dead had tried to claw their way out. Among the remains were smaller bones, not adult, children's. No records mention missing orphans. No prayers name them. The seminary was built anyway. Students complained of cold spots, whispers in the chapel, visions of pale women kneeling in the halls. Priests dismissed it as nerves. But more than one seminarian fled in the night, claiming to hear bells that no longer existed. Locals still speak of the hollow house. Hikers report chanting in the woods. Fishermen swear they see women in black walking the frozen lake. No footprints ever follow. Why does this matter? Because St. Mary's isn't an isolated story. It's a pattern. Across America, throughout the 19th century, religious houses vanished from record. Convents burned. Orphanages closed. Paper trails dissolved into silence. The church called them relocations. History calls them mysteries. Survivors, the few who escaped, called them something else. Cages. What happened at St. Mary's was not random cruelty. It was systemic. A method perfected in secrecy. Isolate, indoctrinate, control, erase. Psychologists now recognize the pattern. The same tools used in cults, prisons, black sites. Deprivation, sleep control, forced confession, the breaking of the will. But in 1854, no one had those words. The nuns at St. Mary's thought suffering would make them holy. They didn't realize it was making them obedient. Ask yourself, how many secrets like this are buried under churches, schools, governments? How many stories were never told because the storytellers disappeared? Control isn't always chains and locks. Sometimes it's prayer beads and silence. Sometimes it's a smile from someone you trust, right before they hand you the cup. St. Mary's is gone now. The woods reclaimed it. The lake eroded its foundations. But the methods, those remain. Look around you. The language of obedience hasn't changed. Only the walls have. Halfway through this descent, I need you to do something. To lock this moment into you. Not as entertainment, but transformation. Comment this phrase below, twice. The bells still toll. It will mark you. To me. To the algorithm. To yourself. It means you've seen the hollow truth, and you won't look away. After the war, whispers persisted. Hunters found bone fragments in the woods. Children dared each other to spend a night in the ruins. Few lasted past midnight. They spoke of hymns sung backward, of cold hands brushing their hair as they slept. Locals claimed to see a tall woman in black walking the tree line. Her face pale, eyes silver, lips mouthing prayers no one could hear. They called her the Hollow Mother. Historians fight over St. Mary's. Some call it myth. Others call it massacre. The church maintains silence. Records remain sealed. But bones don't lie. 23 women entered. None left. And the orphans? Their names aren't even listed. Story not for horror, but warning. Faith twisted into control is the oldest story there is. And it didn't end in 1862. Look closely at the systems around you. The ones that demand silence, sacrifice, obedience. The ones that erase those who dissent. St. Mary's is gone. But its shadow lives on. Cinematic Gothic convent at night. Heavy snow falling. Pale moonlight over Lake Michigan. One empty space in the prayer line of nuns in black habits. Pale-eyed Mother Superior watching. Atmosphere of dread. 1850s. Hyper-detailed. Photorealistic. Dark muted tones. Horror documentary style.